Boeing Starliner is one of two US spacecraft tasked by NASA with transporting astronauts to and from the International Space Station.
After many years of setbacks, it's ready to launch and is expected to blast off from Cape Canaveral later today. Our science correspondent Palab Ghosh can tell us more about it.
Starliner is a brand new spacecraft that looks like the Apollo module used in the moon landings more than 50 years ago. It carried 3 astronauts, whereas Starliner has a maximum capacity of 7. The spacecraft will take a day to reach the space station, when it'll test out its docking and cargo transportation systems. The mission will last for around a week, and on returning to Earth, the crew will experience Starliner's landing system, which will touch down in the deserts of the southwestern United States.
So let's talk to Chris Copperwheat, astrophysicist, Liverpool John Moores University. You've been here before, and we were before hoping it was going to go. Just give us some basics, timeline-wise, for people who want to know these things. 5:25 this afternoon, PM.
Yes, UK time.
UK time.
Yeah, that is the plan.
If everything
goes to plan,
yeah.
I mean, obviously, whenever a human spaceflight is involved, safety is the #1 priority. So, as I said, 3 weeks ago, I was sat on this sofa talking about this launch. The last minute, they had an issue. I mean, the astronauts were in the rocket; they were ready to go. There was an issue with the rocket booster itself, which they repaired. They then found a fault with the actual spacecraft itself, a very minor a leak in one of the thrusters, one of the things that controls the motion of it when it's in space. So they've gone back and forward on this fault. You know, how much of a problem is it? They've decided it's not a serious issue. They can go ahead with the launch. So yeah, after all these delays, there is a real hope that today is going to be the day.
How many people are in the Starliner?
There's going to be 2 in this initial launch, so this would be the first manned launch. Once it gets cleared for routine flight operations to the International Space Station, it can take a crew of 7. It can also take a smaller crew if they have cargo on board. So this is part of the the routine trips back and forward into a near-Earth orbit to the space station.
So where's it going to go?
It's going to go to the International Space Station.
It's definitely going to go there and stay there for how long?
It's going to go there. It docks. It's there for a short period of time for this test flight. I think it's only there for a few days, and then it will return to Earth.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
When it returns to Earth...
Yes.
Because there's always this thing about where it's going to land and if it comes down in kind of one piece. It's landing in the sea. I
think this time it's not going to land in the sea, it's going to land on land. But yes, traditionally, American spacecraft certainly have landed in the sea, yes. But yes, it's a combination of sort of parachutes and airbags to bring it down to the top.
And how much of the aircraft can be reused?
So this is the interesting thing about this new era of spaceflight, both in terms of what Boeing are doing and in terms of what SpaceX are doing. The actual spacecraft itself, the bit that goes up and comes down again, is reusable. Right. So I think they'll be able to use this spacecraft once it begins routine operations for as many as 6 flights backwards and forwards.
So, Chris, this is incredible technology, and it's developing all the time to make it more and more usable. The human side of these things, I'm just going back to what you said before about they were on board.
Yeah.
And they were told there's a problem. I mean, right at the core of the human instincts, surely as an astronaut, you're prepared for everything. You've got the best engineers in the world. Mm-hmm. The one thing you don't really want to hear is, we've got a problem. Mm-hmm. I mean, I know it's better to know it than not know it, which is obviously the most important thing. But, you know, these are very dramatic moments.
Absolutely, yeah. And I guess it's better for them to know it before they've ignited the engine rather than afterwards. But, I mean, I guess this is, we think of astronauts as these, heroes. They've got the right stuff, they've got nerves of steel. These are the moments when that really comes to the fore, I guess. And those same astronauts will be on the pad today in the same situation.
And they are stress tested in the same way, I guess, as the structure itself, aren't they, in terms of what they can cope with and the problems
Absolutely,
they might face.
Yes, it's a rigorous process. Although one interesting thing, something I mentioned was that the crew, when this begins routine operations, it could be up to 7. It is expected that on some of these trips, some of those seats will be reserved for space tourists. So this is part of the way that they're going to commercialise these flights.
Well, it's a business now, isn't it?
Yeah,
Space.
absolutely.
It's competitive.
Yeah. And this is the whole thinking. So NASA, I think, they see their ambitions in terms of what they want to do in terms of exploration, deep space, the moon. They see Earth orbit and the space station much more as in a position now where it will be an era of commercial exploitation.
And if there were a price tag on that seat, as and when it happens, Chris, what would that be, do you think?
Well, high. I don't know. I don't know the number for that, but
No.
yes, it's going to be out of our means, I would think.
And you've got China involved as well.
Yes, absolutely. So I think this is what's really
Competing.
interesting. Yeah. So I mean, you know, a lot of people, they ask me, you know, they say, you know, we went back to the moon in the 60s and 70s. You know, why haven't we gone back? And it's not really a question of the technology. It's about the funding and the political will that drives it. And part of that is the competition. You know, it's all about the competition, both commercially and also between governments.
Chris, it is fascinating. We know the times. If it's all according to plan, 5:25 this afternoon. Thank you. You'll be watching, I know. Good to see you here this morning.
My pleasure.
Thanks, Chris.